Thank you, Minister John Deng, and thank you to Taiwan and all the organizers who've made today possible. I'm very honored to speak to you on behalf of the United States. The theme of the Yushan Forum, Fostering Economic and Social Connectivity, is one that inspired me early in my career and still motivates me today. 2 years ago, I made a career transition and I joined the U.S. Small Business Administration, where I focus near exclusively on United States small business responsible for investment and innovation. Previously, I served with the U.S. Agency for International Development and the State Department for more than 2 decades. I had the privilege of working at a global scale, visiting 34 countries, 5 in Asia, and focusing on some of the most intractable cross-border problems: the Haitian multinational peacekeeping operation, conflict in Afghanistan and Pakistan, Mekong River resource management, women's empowerment, anti-human trafficking. And in recent years, I've come to appreciate the transformative effect of innovation, science, and technology, and how government can nurture entrepreneurship through the policies we put in place and the programs we support. I'm so very pleased to see colleagues from the Philippines, Vietnam, Indonesia, and other countries with whom USAID so closely cooperates. Having spent so much time looking at this big global picture, I now realize that I had a big blind spot. I thought small businesses meant micro enterprises, startups, small-scale entrepreneurs, and I underappreciated the outsized contributions of high-growth businesses to so many economies in creating jobs and revenues that really surpass the more visible large companies we typically associate with our countries. So today, from my relatively new perspective, focusing on small business development in the United States, I wish to share with you some of the insights of relevance to Asia. First, I want to make the business case to you about why small is big, specifically the importance and potential of small businesses in an innovation-driven economy. Second, I want to persuade you that trade and regional cooperation are the paths to even more vibrant small business growth. And finally, I want to challenge you to embrace the disruptive innovations that can and will benefit small businesses, countries, and regions. To start, I know our hosts from Taiwan and many of you in the room are motivated to create innovation-driven economies. To do this, small businesses are key. In the United States, small businesses created 3 out of every 4 jobs since 1992. 53% of workers are employed by small businesses. And if our small business sector were an economy, it would rank number 5 in the world in terms of output, beyond or above both Germany and Japan. I know that in Taiwan, too, small businesses play a similarly central role in the economy and create millions of jobs. Almost 80% of all workers in Taiwan are employed by small and medium-sized enterprises, or SMEs, and across Asia, as you well know, the story is similar. I want to take a few minutes to talk about a very special subcategory of small businesses and the opportunity that they represent. If you were an investor and I were to tell you that there is a group of businesses that are forming at a far higher rate than other businesses and reaching a customer base that controls 73% of household spending, wouldn't you want to know more? This is the potential represented by women-led firms, and it's a potential that we in the United States are working hard to cultivate. In the US, October is National Women's Small Business Month, and we celebrate that women's ownership business rates are up 27%. They employ 8 million workers across 10 million firms. Nevertheless, like Taiwan, these women-led businesses in the US are largely single employee operations. To truly unlock the opportunities of an innovation-driven economy, we need to ensure that female entrepreneurs have access to capital, access to markets, and the support they need to grow their areas of expertise, business, and jobs. The potential, if we do so, is immense. McKinsey Global Institute estimates that if women were to play the same role as men in labor markets, as much as 28 trillion US dollars could be added to global GDP by 2025. So while many existing women-owned businesses might fall under that micro category, we need to think about how to empower women to fully participate in the high-growth innovation and technology sectors to access their unrealized potential. Moving businesses from startups to that initial public offering or IPO is a really critical path in an innovation-driven economy. I'd like to talk to you about some of the programs that the U.S. Small Business Administration has that help fuel U.S. high-growth businesses and have done so over many decades, overcoming the most essential obstacle, which is the lack of access to capital. At the early stage, when companies turn science into business, we sponsor the Small Business Innovation Research, or SBIR program. U.S. companies like Qualcomm and Symantec, products like the Sonicare toothbrush, LASIK eye surgery, and the Roomba robot vacuum received their early seed funding through this program. This program supports small, high-growth, high-tech companies with $2.5 billion of funding each year. This dedicated funding for small businesses is provided by U.S. government agencies like the Department of Defense, the Department of Health and Human Services, and NASA, and it represents just 3% of their overall research and development budgets. At the later stage, to help these and other companies grow to larger scale, SBA's Small Business Investment Company program partners with professionally managed investment firms to provide capital to small businesses. We have more than 300 funds in our portfolio, which totals $28 billion, and it represents the world's largest middle market fund of funds. It's the investors who make the investment decisions. The Small Business Administration typically offers a 2-to-1 government match on private funds raised, tapping debt that is backed by the U.S. government, and I should say that this program runs at zero subsidy to the American taxpayer. It allows fund managers to make a big impact with low-cost leverage, and looking back over the past 20 years, some of America's most iconic brands were financed by SBICs: Apple, Tesla, AOL, FedEx, Hewlett-Packard. Moreover, for each day that program existed over the last 2 decades, 12,000 jobs a day were created or sustained for a total of 9 million jobs over a 20-year period. My second point today is about regional cooperation and trade and the exponential impact that the small business can achieve if they can take advantage of globalization. Here especially, the United States stands to learn a great deal from models in Asia. We know that small businesses that export report higher sales, employ more people, pay higher wages, and are on average more productive than firms that do not export. And we also know that 96% of all the world's consumers and over 3/4 of the world's purchasing power are outside the United States. Yet we're very disappointed that still only 1% of all of America's small businesses are exporters. And while far more Asian small businesses engage in trade than they do in the United States, they too contribute far less than in their domestic economies. When it comes to trade, small businesses are challenged by access to information, access to capital, and barriers to market entry. Regional collaboration's essential for addressing these barriers. Already through initiatives such as the U.S.-Taiwan Global Cooperation and Training Framework, dozens of experts, government officials, and civil society leaders from countries around the Asia-Pacific region have attended workshops held in Taiwan focused on public health, energy efficiency, women's empowerment, and e-commerce. There are other potential areas for additional regional cooperation that the Small Business Administration, on behalf of the U.S. government, would like to pursue. For example, the State Trade Expansion Program, known as STEP, enables SMEs to participate in overseas trade opportunities that include matchmaking services, trade missions, and trade shows. No doubt, this program can be a vehicle to connect U.S. SMEs with trade partners in Taiwan and the region. We also believe that we can and should do more to help American innovative small businesses to commercialize their intellectual property, engage in joint ventures, and trade with the many countries represented in the room today. And while the programs for regional cooperation are tremendously important, it all relies on a favorable business environment, a sine qua non. A regulatory environment that is fair, transparent, and predictable is especially important for small businesses because they lack the resources of larger companies to navigate complex government rules and procedures. Amplifying the voice of SMEs in policymaking helps to drive innovation and deepen engagement in the global digital economy. Wider participation in rulemaking, especially by women entrepreneurs and small business owners, will lead to finding new, more intelligent, and more flexible regulatory alternatives. Global indices of competitiveness show that the countries of this region are making a significant amount of progress. For example, the World Economic Forum most recent Global Competitiveness Index shows that the 5 largest members of ASEAN all now rank in the top half of overall global rankings, and 4 of the 5 have significantly improved their rankings since 2007. So whether it's the Global Competitiveness Index or the agenda of the Yushan Forum, we're focused on the key ingredients in creating an innovation ecosystem. I applaud the forum and the chance for us all to consider what more we can do through policies, programs, and trade. Which brings me to my third and final point, a challenge to everyone in the room to embrace disruptive change. We are a distinguished group of current and former presidents, prime ministers, vice presidents, ministers, chairpersons, CEOs, and thought leaders who represent the establishment. For small businesses to drive and thrive in an innovation-based economy, the status quo will be disrupted. We, as members of that status quo, need to take care to embrace rather than resist the disruptive innovations that can and should benefit small businesses, countries, and regions. In recent years alone, a number of transformative innovations benefited small business operations and disrupted established interests. Mobile internet made it possible to reach distant customers via small transactions that add up to big revenues, especially in Southeast Asia, where the smartphone to personal computer ratio is much larger than in the West. But this hurt the sales of personal computers. Cloud-based solutions now mean that a small business isn't held back by the lack of IT infrastructure and is able to save costs, as well as operate from a range of locales. But this has displaced more costly IT infrastructure providers. Blockchain is particularly intriguing to me. I started paying attention when people said it would be as disruptive and transformative as the internet was decades ago, especially in trade and finance. Just very briefly, blockchain technologies are an incorruptible digital ledger of economic transactions that can be programmed to record anything of value. Picture a ledger that not only records assets and liabilities, but a third entry that's a verifiable cryptographic receipt of any transaction. Last month, Fortune magazine noted its relevance and ability to streamline trade finance, security clearance and settlements, cross-border payments, and insurance. Blockchain takes the internet a step further, able to turn networks into decentralized marketplaces. So imagine then the power of a distributed social network enabling cross-border small business transaction and trade without a central platform and the costly need of intermediaries. The opportunities for small business are immense. To conclude, I want to again thank Minister Deng and the organizers of the Yushan Forum for bringing us together. Regardless of where you are from, I hope that my remarks convinced you that small business is big business, and with our support, policies, and programs, we could play an even larger role in driving innovation, especially through increased trade and regional collaboration. Let us continue advancing this purpose collectively as it strengthens every community. 谢谢。